Starting a business can seem like a daunting task, unless you have a partner like Shopify. They have the tools you need to start and grow your business. From designing a website to marketing to selling and beyond, Shopify can help with everything you need. There's a reason millions of companies like Mattel, Heinz, and Allbirds continue to trust and use them. With Shopify on your side, turn your big business idea into... Sign up for your $1 per month trial at shopify.com/special offer.
It was a bizarre game, wasn't it? I mean, such a cliche, but never a truer word was spoken. It was indeed a game of two halves. The first 10 minutes, United were absolutely perfection, right? It was completely magnificent. That Hernandez goal, I mean, we've been blessed this season with some absolute belters. I'm starting to assemble a top five, and I've got 4 positions definitely taken. RVP against West Ham, Rafael against QPR, Kagawa's second against Norwich, and now another one to add to the list. An absolutely incredible reverse pass from Carrick, and then just a miraculous guided header from Chicharito. Technically, absolutely extraordinary, that goal. But then, as you say, second half, Manchester United appeared to give up all hope. Rafa's substitutions greeted by boos, and you don't know what you're doing from the crowd, proceeded to completely change the game. And in the end, I was going to say United were lucky not to lose, but of course they weren't lucky. They were gifted with the goalkeeper that is David De Gea, and that's why they didn't lose.
Well, yeah, coming back to the Hernandez goal of 5 minutes or so, wasn't it? And another fantastic header from Hernandez. I mean, pick out his top 3. There's this one, great looping header from, as you say, a fantastic pass. The back header against Stoke. And then I'm going to give him the one that went off off his face on his debut in the Charity Shield.
Yeah, clearly. That's number 1.
Yeah, totally. He meant it, it's the nose that won it. So, and Rooney scored as well after all the criticism, the column inches and all of that. The boy Wazza put United 2 up after about 10 minutes or so, and it looked super easy. It looked like United were going to cruise the game, didn't it? And all changed after an hour or so. Rafa Benitez perhaps got one over on Sir Alex, changed the game with substitutions. That's twice in a week or so that substitutions have changed the opponent's game in their favour, isn't it? And Alex might want to have a look at himself there, maybe. I don't know why, because Chelsea had played more recently than United, but United looked like they ran out of steam completely. There were no legs in that sort of last half hour. Was there all the energy and impetus went out of the game, and it looked like United had played 2 days before, not Chelsea.
Yes, but I think the reason is to do with intensity, because anyone that you do a day's physical activity and a day's intense concentration, the intense concentration will be the thing that tires you out more. The heightened emotion of the game against Real Madrid and the incredible intensity of the build-up and all that kind of stuff, and just around the whole club, I'm sure that took its toll, and the physiological aspect of that comes into play then, and the effect of concentration and emotional intensity on the body. So the fact that we'd had more of a physical rest didn't really matter, because our exertion was so much greater than Chelsea's had been.
I think you're right, yeah. I mean, it's clearly that, but it had such a profound effect on United, and I suppose there are a few days off now, aren't there, until the game against Reading at the weekend, and reasonably that should be a game that United win anyway, so hopefully a chance to recharge the batteries. And you mentioned David De Gea, praise again. I mean, he seems to be pulling out all his special games against Chelsea, doesn't he? But save from Juan Mata with sort of moments to go in the game, got United a replay.
Yeah, I mean, not just against Chelsea, but against Juan Mata, clearly. Juan Mata must really hate David De Gea. That was just ridiculous, that save. I mean, that was a goal, much like the Mata free kick. It just felt like a goal, right up until the point it went in, it didn't go in the back of the net. Actually, it's worth probably singling out Petr Cech for some praise as well. His stop from David Luiz was pretty impressive. A fine attacking header. Not quite Gareth Barry-esque, but still a really good attempt from David Lowles.
Yeah, right. Oh, wait, we shouldn't forget that Cech is a really fine goalkeeper. I mean, there was a period during his early career where people were talking about him as the best in the world, and obviously that head injury against Reading, I thought it gave him sort of 3 years of uncertainty, and I don't know whether it was a direct consequence, but I kind of suspect it was. He didn't seem as secure in his handling, he made more mistakes, he just didn't seem like the same keeper, but I get the sense in the last couple of years he's found some of his old authority again.
Yeah, no, absolutely. He seems to be definitely redeveloping that. And I don't think I don't know, you wouldn't say that Petr Cech's the best goalkeeper in the world, would you now? And I think you're right, there was that period where he probably was, or, I mean, I don't know, it's a bit arbitrary, isn't it? I don't really watch enough Serie A to know how he compares to Gigi Buffon or whatever, or even Casillas in La Liga. But yeah, I kind of felt that United were going to regret not scoring a third, which is a slightly funny thing to say because you often would hear like, oh, they're going to regret not scoring a second. But it really felt like we had so much dominance in that first half, and you thought, well, this is not going to last. And then we just completely ran out of any kind of answer to Chelsea. Carrick, I said on Twitter that, and I am a huge Carrick advocate, so not one to get on his back quickly or anything, but I thought he had a really poor game, and other people said no, he was really good defensively and was very important to United, so that's fair enough. But it looked to me like every time we got the second ball, we wasted it.
Yeah, so I thought United were really sloppy, and I thought Carrick wasn't up to his usual standards. I mean, and I'm a big fan of Michael Carrick, so I'm allowed to criticise him, unlike those who criticise him for the sake of it, and they have no right to say anything. Honest. And so yeah, I don't think he had a good game at all. I thought Cleverley again, and Kagawa not great either.
Cleverley was below not great, unfortunately.
Yeah,
I mean,
quite.
We don't mercilessly lump on players for no reason, but do try and present a kind of not objective, but an honest, subjective analysis of how I felt the game went, and I thought Tom Cleverley was absolutely appalling in that game. You could see he was really trying, but nothing came off for him. I have to say, to counter that, that's what young players give you. That is the reality of young players when they're put in the first team. I mean, we all look back with such rose-tinted spectacles at the class of 92, but they were a complete shambles from time to time, when they were being introduced to the first team. And I hope this just goes down as a game in Cleverley's career where it's just, oh yeah, remember that time when he was a complete shambles? God, look at him now, absolutely world beater kind of thing.
Right. Well, look, we can't extrapolate too much from one game, and I get what you say about young players. He's not actually that young. He's inexperienced, which I suppose is sort of the same thing. But he's 23 and he'll be 24, not that far away. So he's coming into a period where he should really be growing in authority. But he's had a fine season, I think. It's all relative, so it's based on his previous seasons. He's had a fine season. I think we'd expect even more from him next season. And of course, if he didn't deliver it, then there'd be some more questions, I think. There's plenty in the locker from Cleverley, but it wasn't a good game against Chelsea.
Other players to single out, actually the really negative effect on the game when Nani came off injured and replaced by Valencia. Funny thing to say because change so mercurial, isn't it? Who's in form and who's not. But I mean, Nani was really effective and looked really dangerous all the time. It's so confusing, football. And then Valencia came on and there's been a few little glimpses of hope in some of his recent performances, but this was back to the absolute troughs of I don't know, like some sort of footballing depression that Tony V's in. Just an absolute total loss of form.
Yeah, and it's really depressing that this has happened. I see people saying things like, we've got to sell him, he should never wear the shirt again. And I think that kind of thing is nonsense because this time last year he was almost single-handedly driving United towards almost winning the league. He was brilliant in the run-in, was Tony Valencia. So let's not forget that. He's not had a great season, but the quality's there. So there's lots and lots more to come to him. Maybe he's tired, maybe he's carrying an injury, as we talked about. Who knows? It doesn't seem quite right that he's lost so much confidence given how good he was in the spring last year. And for Nani, well, it's great that he had a good, not long, obviously, because he got injured, but it's great that he had another positive impact on a United game, and there's been a few of those now, right? And he talked afterwards about wanting to grow and wanting to perform better, and there's still the big question mark over his contract. Of course, it's not signed, doesn't look like it will be, and if you were betting on it, you'd say that he'd be gone in the summer.
But you would have bet that he would have been gone the January before last summer, and January just gone as well, wouldn't you? So
and Ferguson doesn't lose patience with players quickly, does he? He's given Nani inconsistent over 6 seasons now, and Anderson even more inconsistent over the same period, an awful lot of chances. So he's not quick to get rid of players just for the sake of it, but the contract situation's not being resolved. It seems that he and his people have a different valuation than the club does. Ferguson, if you believe the grapevine, had effectively made the decision about Nani that United would get rid. United tried to get rid in January, it seems, to Zenit. So all signs still point to Nani going. But look, if he puts in some brilliant performances, if his people adjust their expectations about wages, it could all turn round.
Yeah, absolutely, especially if Valencia doesn't recover some form. And you've answered a question that we had from @VidaMUFC, so thank you for the question, and I hope Ed's answer there answers certainly his perspective on that, which is that, you know, it's too soon to give up on Valencia. And whether he can get out of his rut is absolutely fascinating. I have no idea. This looks like Torres, you know, this looks like a complete loss of form over a really sustained period of time. But Valencia's had quiet periods in his career before, and come back to some kind of peak again. So, you know, I do think it's possible.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a wider question about United's wide players, isn't there? That probably needs to be addressed in the summer, because if you think about it, we really don't have any that have been performing to the total effect this season. So Ashley Young's been injured a lot, and there's question marks about his quality anyway. Valencia, poor form. Nani, poor form. Others who've played in wide positions are playing there not in their natural position. So Kagawa, I don't think he's anywhere near as effective when he plays wide left and comes in. Rooney has played there on occasion. Welbeck more often. Giggs, you know, going on 87 or whatever he is now. So there is a big question in the summer about whether United have enough resources in wide areas and exactly how Ferguson wants to play with his forward players. I mean, he's all been very effective going forward this season. United scored a lot of goals, of course, you shouldn't forget that, but it's not optimal at the moment, and these debates about all our wingers kind of highlight that, I think.
Talking of players in and out of form, it was interesting that Robin came on, but very singularly failed to change the game by coming on. A definite little dip in form, and not particularly critical of him for that, because he's played an enormous amount of football and was enormously relied upon for a good stretch of that. Slightly odd decision, I thought, to bring him on for Hernandez. There was just something about that didn't feel like it was going to work to me, but, you know, you do understand the logic of the decision, don't you? But it felt like our problem wasn't getting the ball to stick up front. Our problem was getting the ball to stick, you know, a third of the way between our penalty box and the centre circle. You know, it was really...
Right, yeah.
It was all really pushed forward. And what do you make of the Benitez thing? It was hilarious. Chelsea fans started singing, "Your support's a load of ... about, 5 minutes after they'd all booed these substitutions that had changed the game, and "You're not wanted here," and all that kind of stuff. It's a bit petty, isn't it? What's wrong with Benitez as an interim manager? It's a perfectly decent shift of it he's making, isn't he?
Think back to some of the big games that Chelsea and Liverpool had in Europe and Benitez wasn't exactly respectful of the opposition. So that's the problem, right? For Chelsea fans, it's not quite, but it's not far off Kenny Dalglish taking over at Old Trafford, right? So imagine how the Old Trafford support would react to that. So logically, Benitez is a perfectly acceptable interim manager. He's experienced. He's taken clubs far in Europe before. He's won trophies. I think personality-wise, and given the club he's at, it's not the right fit. I don't think it ever was, but that's why he was given the title interim. They knew that. They wanted a safe pair of hands for these few months, and they're hoping to get Jose back in the summer, because they couldn't get Pep, but Jose and Roman are talking, so says the gossip columns. So maybe that will happen. So logically, yes, perfectly acceptable. I think emotionally not acceptable, and that's why the Chelsea fans have reacted the way they have. And of course it's petty, and of course Benitez is right logically when he says, basically, to paraphrase, you're cutting your nose off to spite your face here. You're not helping the team, and all of that makes total sense, but football's not logical, right? It's emotional. People are emotionally invested in their club, and they don't like this guy who's an outsider and was their opponent, bitter opponent, for a very long time.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense, and you are right. it's just really stupid and it's really self-destructive from Chelsea's point of view as far as I can work out. But you know what, I don't really know much about Chelsea, so I'm not well informed enough to speak on it, but it was just really comical the way they responded to that. Such a smart substitution as well, because he obviously, when at the point at which he brought on Hazard, he wanted to solidify the centre of midfield so that they were less vulnerable. You know, that Hazard coming on wouldn't make them more vulnerable to a counter-attack. So he took off Lampard and put on Mikel, because they play such a different... They play in that two so differently, don't they? Yeah, it was like, very good substitution, worked very effectively, and United had absolutely no answer to it because they had no outlet, because every time the midfielders came out with the ball, they either gave it away or it got to Valencia and then completely dried up, and there wasn't much going down on the left either.
No, it made a lot of sense tactically. He got it completely right and changed the game around. I mean, I have to say, I really do like Hazard as a player, as a personality. He's a cocky bastard, isn't he? He really is. He really is. I mean, he trolled the whole of the media world last summer quite brilliantly. I did enjoy that, actually. But the rest of him, not much to like. But he's a really fantastic player, really, really explosive, really impactful player. Great with the ball at his feet, makes the right intelligent runs, got really dangerous in front of goal. I mean, I wrote a piece last summer when Chelsea signed Hazard, and it looked like United were about to sign Kagawa, and we all thought that was nailed on, saying, I thought United got the wrong man. Got a lot of criticism for that, got to say, and they don't really play in exactly the same position. They tend to play Hazard sort of off the left, drifting into the centre, so not a classic 10, but he's very, very effective there, and a really fine player. Went to the wrong club because he was interested in the cash, but there you go. Too bad sometimes it goes like that.
Yeah, absolutely. You cannot win them all, and Shinji's sort of more endearing than Eden Hazard, at least. We've got that going for us.
Yes, very, very much. Actually, one last thing I wanted to say about that game, because you kind of touched on it, Robin van Persie having played so many games. He played 37 times this season. It's more than any other United player across all competitions. And I think, given his injury profile, United will do well to not try and burn him out here. There's some really tough games coming up. Reading isn't one of them. And then there's the international break, so he'll end up playing for Holland. I would think it'd be a good opportunity to not play him again and utilise the squad there. We'll see whether that happens. I mean, the temptation is in difficult times to bring him on because he's the saviour, but I think him being fresh for the last 10, 12 games of the season is more important than playing him against Reading, but we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, I could not agree more with that because, to go back to what I was saying about concentration being more tiring than physical effort, it's not just that he's played 37 games, but they've been 37 games full of kind of emotional roller coaster, which he's been an absolutely central pivot to. Even when it goes in your favour, there's still a physical consequence of that. There's still I would imagine that scoring that winner against Man City, the elation that's going to give you, there's definitely a physiological consequence to that afterwards, the highs and lows and the ups and downs and all that. I'm not surprised that he's had such a noticeable dip in form from scoring 12 goals a game to 1 in 9 I think it is now, which is so I agree, and it is a difficult one because then you worry, well, what are you doing to his confidence and stuff, but I think you've got to think Van Persie's confidence isn't going to be too shaken by this, is he? He's going to back himself to get back into form pretty quickly.
He will. The quality's there. I think he's just tired. I think it's really approaching sort of burnout point. Moving on, I guess. I wanted to talk about another relative failure. England, no Premier League clubs in the quarter-final of the Champions League after Arsenal were knocked out by Bayern Munich. Put up a good fight, to be fair. Arsenal, well, ish. I mean, the scoreline tells a very different story to the how the game actually went. But what do you make of this? I mean, United unlucky to go out, City out of the group stages again, Arsenal knocked out, Chelsea knocked out. Is this a new world order now? England could drop to, or the Premier League could drop to, third in the UEFA coefficients. Any more failure and the Premier League risks losing a place in the Champions League, which would have some very serious consequences.
Yeah, you'd have to think that English teams are doing all right in the Europa League, aren't they, this season? So that's going to pump up the coefficient points because that does count quite a lot. I think there is absolutely nothing whatsoever to be read into this particular season's failure on the part of English clubs. I really don't think. In fact, I think the Premier League is sort of re-strengthening at the moment. I think United's performance against Real sort of indicates that. It's interesting to see how good we were, like absolute world beaters one week, and then the like 6 days later or whatever it was, we looked like the lads from the Dog and Duck had got to run out. But no, I think United were drawn against Real Madrid in the last 16 in spite of the fact that they won their group, which is incredibly unfortunate. Arsenal were drawn against Bayern Munich. Okay, Arsenal didn't win their group and that's why it happened. We can all make fun of City as much as we want, but a group with Dortmund and Real Madrid in it is absolutely rock hard, and yeah, they have underperformed in Europe, but they're new to it, It's you just have to take that seriously with European football. Remember how long it took us to establish a foothold in Europe, once we started to have some success.
There's a completely different environment now. I mean, City have bought a bunch of established international players who have done good things in European football. United were going for a very low base, right? Think about where England was in the mid-80s, coming out of the ban. United's first season back in European competition, won the Cup Winners' Cup, which was, thinking maybe that's like the adrenaline after coming back from a long injury. Then you have a big dip. There wasn't much success for English clubs through the mid-1990s, and it did take us a long time because English football was coming from a low base, And
I think you're right.
In many ways, that makes United's 1999 win pretty remarkable, rather than the 3 finals in 4 years, which was right at the height of the Premier League's power.
Yeah, and I think it's also England was obviously disproportionately affected by the 3 foreigners rule because of the relationship between Scotland, Wales, Ireland. So going to have a very significant impact in a different way. But yeah, no, you're right about that. You are right. It isn't directly comparable. It was perhaps foolish to make the analogy, but still, even all that aside, that's a tough group for Barcelona to qualify from. If Barcelona were in that group instead of City, I think you'd think they'd probably qualify because they're very good in that, but Dortmund and Real Madrid are 2 of the finest teams in Europe, no doubt about that.
Well, talking of Barcelona, absolutely stunning performance against Milan. Everyone, 3 defeats in a row for Barcelona, Milan, Real, and everybody suddenly was hopping onto their typewriter to write up the Barca obituary, and they were absolutely stunning against Milan, absolutely thumped them.
The fact that their coach is having chemotherapy at the moment and they pulled that performance with the guy that used to put the video replays together, at the helm, it just goes to show what an incredible job they've done there.
Well, my new AVB was the guy who used to put the video replays together. Someone decided to give him a job in management.
Yes, that's true, and he's doing all right too, isn't he, at the moment? But yeah, although they annoyingly lost to Liverpool, making Liverpool get to... Although I suppose we do get the joy of the fact that Tottenham lost to Liverpool means that got quite a lot of Liverpool fans talking about the reality of their league title push for next season. So that was the one upside from that victory. That Barcelona performance was ridiculous. Messi has clearly been out of form, for Messi, but his performance in that game was just stupid. That first goal, like the amount of space he had and the finish he pulls off, he just thinks quicker than other people, And they're all on the juice though, aren't they, Ed? That's what's going on.
Absolutely, yeah. Orange juice, apple.
Talking of art and football, as I think it's fair to say, we had a fantastic competition prize courtesy of the wonderful artist Brendan Higgins, ChinatownBrunch.com, and at Chinatown Brunch to follow him on Twitter. 3 beautiful prints, very different, all capturing different aspects of what it's like to support Manchester United. A beautiful image of Old Trafford, a fantastic interior of fans celebrating a goal, and just a kind of abstract black, white and red. Anyway, I'm crazy about its stuff, so we were delighted to be able to give that away. And a couple of honourable mentions for the contest prize entries. You guys have not won, but you did a fine job. At Chris K93, Da Vinci was described as the epitome of Renaissance art, just as Scholes is the epitome of the beauty of United. That's good, but Liz Worsley cheated and gave Jack Holt the John O'Shea as Leonardo da Vinci, vintage Renaissance man, so that was pretty good. I really enjoyed this one from at MUFC Jeff. Quentin Blake equals Raphael. There's a perception of him as scrappy and rushed, but really full of colour and life, and all the while being exactly what's needed. And I love that. At bifurcated_MUFC, who is too close to the Rantcast for us to give him the prize, says Michael Craig Martin turned a glass of water into an oak tree without altering its physical appearance. Eric exists on that plane. And talking of Eric, the winner, at Era Gorilla, Sean O'Keefe on Twitter, Says Caravaggio, like Cantona, he was brilliant, influential and violent. He pursued vendettas, brawled in bars and produced beauty. And for that beautiful simile, is it simile? I don't know. Whatever it is, if you could just DM me your details on Twitter, then I'll pass them to Brendan and he'll send out those 3 lovely prints to you. So thanks to everyone
Very good.
who entered that competition, and very massive props to at Chinatown branch for sorting us out with that lovely prize.
Yeah, thank you very much. And of course, Caravaggio died of lead poisoning. Somewhat ironic, really. It was the paint what killed him. I don't think the football will kill Eric. That's why he retired aged 29 and a bit.
Well, that's why he had to retire, because he knew that it would do otherwise, the burning desire for perfection.
Well, there you go. From a painter 400 and a bit years ago to another kind of artist on the pitch. Love it. Not quite an artist, Rio Ferdinand, but he's been pretty influential at Old Trafford and he's back in the England squad. Obviously, this is for football reasons, right?
Clearly, for football reasons, he is the best centre-half in England by miles and miles and miles and miles and miles. The best English centre-half in England. It's ridiculous how good he is. Like, for the first 45 minutes against Chelsea, it was insane, the performance that Rio put together. The performances against Madrid, brilliant. I love him. I don't know, that he's still not taken to heart by the whole of Manchester United fandom, and people get annoyed about his silly caps, which are, there's a cap with the number 5 on it. You can make money out of that. Good luck to you, sort of thing. But he's just an incredibly gifted defender.
He is. He deserves to be in the England squad. Of course, it was never anything to do with football reasons why he was out of the England squad. It was all to do with John Terry being a daft racist.
Yeah.
And Roy Hodgson being in a political bind, and instead of doing the right thing in booting the racist out of the squad, booted the racist victim's brother out of the squad instead.
Yeah, absolutely. And the really bizarre thing about it, well, not the really bizarre thing, but if I was Rio, I would not accept this call-up to the England squad after the way he's been treated.
No, I'd tell the FA where to go, exactly. But didn't Rio say something like that? If he got a call-up, he'd pack his bags and walk to wherever England were playing, so... A very proud Englishman and very proud to play for the national squad, and maybe he'll get a chance to play in Rio with England in 2014 in the World Cup. So it's a long way away, of course, more than a season and a year a bit away, but Rio's played 20 times in the Premier League this season. He's playing a lot of games, he's fit, the old back problems aren't there anymore. There would, of course, be a question about whether he could play 7 games in a month, but given that England will get to the quarter-final, that's really 5 games in 3 weeks, he can manage that.
Yeah, absolutely. Rio, couple of bits of controversy recently. I was about to praise his general professionalism and role model status on the pitch, but a couple of things, bit naughty. The applauding of the referee sarcastically was understandable, but still not necessarily befitting a player of his stature in the game and age and all that.
I think I said, I think that's my favourite form of referee abuse.
Yeah, it's good. But, it's the Torres thing, though, that was really out of order. I mean, I know it's Torres and whatever, but still, can't just knock him over, elbow him in the back of the head, and then pull him up like, get up, you wuss, what are you complaining about? Well, you just ran up to me and elbowed me in the back of the head and knocked me over, and then picked me up like, it was like a weird form. He was trying to convince Torres that he'd imagined what had just happened, and Torres looked very confused and a bit upset.
Barely brushed him. Don't know what you're talking about. Barely brushed him.
He escaped any form of censure from the FA and got an England call-up in the same week. Interesting.
That's the Illuminati at work. Now we've got a new Pope.
Yeah.
Pope Francis. You'll be familiar with that name.
I certainly am.
Yeah. Any thoughts on the new Pope?
Yeah, he's a bit fascist, isn't he? It's a bit of a shame. And listen, sorry if you're really devoutly Catholic and listening to this and believe that the Pope is, chosen by the Lord to represent him on earth. But to be honest, I wanted Peter Turkson to win because I'm friends with his nephew. So that would have been ace, because then I'd have been mates with the Pope's nephew, which surely must be good for something in life, even if it's just a story. But yeah, he's a bit on the old incredibly hostile and right-wing side, isn't he?
That's kind of what popes are, though, isn't it? All I know about the Pope is he's likely to be quite a religious man, and maybe he's a United fan. Let's check that out. He's from Argentina.
He is. I detect the hand of God in this one.
And on that tasteful note, we should move on. Twitter questions this week. I'm sure we've got some.
Yeah, we've got some. At Stuart Dix says, if FFP doesn't snag City or Chelsea or PSG, it will have been a complete waste of time, won't it?
Yes. Absolutely, and look, let's not beat around the bush about this one. FFP is designed entirely to snag City and Chelsea and Malaga and PSG and all the other clubs that are spending way above their means because they have a sugar daddy. It's got nothing about debt. It's nothing in there about leverage takeovers or any of that stuff. This is not about protecting clubs from asset strippers or global capital. This is about levelling the playing field. At the same time, of course, it will build in the status quo, so the big clubs in Europe will tend to benefit disproportionately against the smaller clubs. Doesn't mean you can't grow organically, doesn't mean you can't go invest in a massive brand new stadium like Arsenal and get debt for that reason, but generally speaking it's aimed at City and Chelsea and PSG and the others, yeah.
Okay, at Paul_Haves on a similar note says, what do you make of the PSG €150 million backdated partnership?
So look, the question here is about related party payments, right? So is it...
Of course it is, Ed. That was exactly what was on the tip of all of our tongues. We were all like, oh, you know what the question here is? It's about related party payments. What are they?
It's where a party related to the owners pays you money in sponsorship. So, for example, where the owners of Manchester City from Abu Dhabi and or also the same owners of the Etihad airline, effectively the royal family, are pouring money into Manchester City. Is that related payment? Logic would say yes. And the same here. So the owners of PSG is effectively sovereign wealth. It's a state-owned company that's pouring money into PSG, and so clearly this is related. Now we'll see how this all plays out because actually none of the clubs really have to comply properly for another couple of years yet. So they're going to test the waters. It'll get tested in court eventually. I'm quite sure of that. And UEFA's lawyers better be bloody good in order to make it go through.
Absolutely. I mean, it's going to be really interesting to see what happens with that. The question is spot on, isn't it? If it doesn't get Chelsea or City or PSG, that does literally mean it's failed. And what will happen is a bunch of less successful versions of that will get kind of caught in the crossfire of it all, I would have thought. All right, this is a question I've been asked a couple of times this week, and I feel like I've got a pretty straightforward answer to it, and I think yours will be the same as mine. It's a complete hypothetical, so we've got a not realistic at all. It's just one of those fun, who'd win in a fight between Superman and the Hulk. Superman. Given the option, asks at Lucas_MUTD, would you rather buy Bale or get Ronaldo back?
Ronaldo.
Ronaldo's either the best player in the world or the second best player in the world. He's got a massive built-in relationship with the club. You start to get really super practical about it and say Bale might have more resale value than Ronaldo because of his age, but I think you could probably resell Ronaldo for quite a lot of money in 5 years' time if you really had to.
Yeah, dumb question. Let's move on.
But it's floating around a lot though. I've been asked this from various different sources, but Gareth Bale is in the midst of having a good season, and he might turn out to be absolutely world class, brilliant, totally top of the tree. But he's not quite there yet because he hasn't been there for long enough to demonstrate that, right?
Yeah, and he's just not as good. The thing about things that float around is sometimes they shouldn't.
Okay.
Let's flush this one down.
I was trying to get in the next question before it came up, but I was too late. Amplified to Rock says simply, Modric in? ? Oh, I'd love it so much, but it's never going to happen, is it?
Good question. Yeah, he's not had a good season in Spain, and part of that's because most of the time he's not played in his the right position. Actually, more recently he's been playing in the two behind the three in Real's 4-2-3-1 formation. And a lot of the time he played in the kind of sort of number 10 role, which isn't really his best position. And of course, he's outshunned by Mesut Ozil in that position. So he's not had a great season. Real paid like €23 million plus a massive amount of add-ons, so it wouldn't be cheap for United to get him. I'm not sure that they will dump him after a season, although of course he might have been a Jose purchase, so we'll see what happens with Mr. Mourinho at the end of the season. So yeah, possibly he's available.
I mean, if he's available, we should break the bank to get him, I think.
Right, and he would excel in the same formation alongside Michael Carrick in the United central midfield. Absolutely.
Yeah, although it's worth pointing out, if his problem at Real Madrid has been that he's been played consistently not in his best position, he probably doesn't want to come to United because he will end up playing fullback quite a lot.
Fair enough. It rounds them off.
Yeah, it does. It's a total football thing. This is all because of Johan Cruyff. That's why everyone's a fullback. A question from at MRMSO7. Did you back Carrick Boy at Cheltenham at 50-1?
I did not. It would have been a good bet though, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it would. I'm not a gambling man, but I imagine at least one Manchester United fan must have bet on that horse just because it was called Carrick Boy, surely.
I'm sure quite a few did.
Congratulations to all of you. Let us know if you did.
Very good. There's a 2-horse race coming up this weekend.
That's good.
And United being the runaway Grand National winner, and there's some clogger coming up on the rails at Old Trafford. Reading couldn't do it. They're not going to win by a nose, are they?
That was amazing. Well, they've lost their jockey, of course, in midweek, or their trainer, one or the other. Can't work out which. Brian McDermott has been sacked in what can only be described as a remarkably harsh decision from a man who just got Reading promoted. The whole thing of sacking managers for not being able to keep their teams in the Premier League when they bring them up seems absolutely bizarre to me, especially since, I don't know, Reading have been all right. They've had a few good moments, and this seems like a jolly weird time of the season to sack someone, because what's really going to happen? I mean, I guess you're relying on that new manager bump keeping you up, which will earn you millions of pounds. I suppose it's worth a gamble.
Reading managing director just said they had no one lined up.
Right.
So this isn't even a Southampton where they had someone lined up.
No, this is a Wolves.
Yeah. And they're going to end up giving it to the reserve team coach, who is totally incompetent and will just help get them relegated, and they won't get the bump, you know. I feel no sympathy for chairmen who do this kind of thing. None at all. I mean, Brian McDermott, it seems like a decent guy. He gets them playing decent football. They qualified for the Premier League by right because they were a fine side in the Championship last season. He's clearly a victim of his own success. How short-sighted can you be? You deserve everything you get.
Yeah, and also sponsored by Waitrose and have goal music. So, you know, I've got nothing against the people of Reading or the supporters of Reading or the players or staff at Reading or even the managing director, who seems to be a bit crazy. But, you know, good luck to him. When you look at the relegation struggle, someone's got to go down. It might as well be someone with goal music. I think that's fair, isn't it?
I mean, to be fair, that is a good reason.
Yeah.
Goal music, like many things in this modern world, is unacceptable, and whoever invented it should be beaten to death.
It's always like one of 3 tunes and none of them are any good as well. That's the other thing. Like, there's a few tunes associated with football that are brilliant. The theme from Z-Cars is brilliant. The Liquidator is brilliant. One Love is absolutely brilliant. This Is the One is amazing. You know, the Ajax fans singing Three Little Birds. And to go with the kind of when you score, it's awful. It's really, really bad. Everybody stop doing goal music, please.
It's almost like something based on Seven Nation Army. You get sick of it, don't you?
You do, but that's now been replaced by joy in my heart. There must be a weird thing where football supporters of those clubs, when they hear that tune, when they're out and about and there's some 90s retrospective going on, they break out into a grin because it's associated in a sort of Pavlovian way with joy. But anyway, you'd need a kind of proper classical conditioning response to make that tune be one that's associated with joy, wouldn't you?
So who do you think is going to go down? Because it's getting tight down at the bottom there. QPR won a couple in a row. I think 23, 24, QPR, Reading, Wigan, and then Villa have got a little bit of a gap and they've actually started to play half decent football. So it's going to be interesting, that one.
Yeah, it really is. Wigan have a game in hand over Villa at the moment, so they're 24 and they've got better goal difference, so if they can win their game in hand, which is obviously a massive if. I mean, Wigan may just have started to Wigan it up a storm. Their 3-0 victory over Everton was quite remarkable. I mean, Everton were terrible in that game, but Wigan played absolutely magnificently, and it is so odd how good they get when they're good.
Right. I wonder if they'll be distracted by some big cup games coming up. I mean, they've got Millwall in the FA Cup semi-final, haven't they? And probably a cup final to come. And actually, I can't remember whether the cup final comes before the final game of the season this year. I think it does, so that might play a factor too.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if that really will. I think the conventional wisdom that's a distraction, whereas it could also be a massive confidence booster. You'd think Martinez is a pretty intelligent manager. He's going to manage that effectively, you would suspect, and they know what they're doing from here. I think the thing that's really fascinating to me is whether this QPR revival is real or not, because it's very easy to write a new narrative based on the fact they've got 2 wins back-to-back, but that could fall apart as quickly as it arrived, you would have thought. Same with Villa's newfound success. Same with Sunderland's absolute slump, being pulled right back into it, currently on 30 points. Southampton on 28. I mean, we said a little while ago that it was definitely 3 from 4, but I think Sunderland and Southampton properly dragged back down into that now.
Yeah, could well be a decent-sized club going down this season, I think. I mean, given the way QPR and Wigan are really pushing on at the moment, so it's it's always good fun. I think it's always good fun when someone big goes down. I mean, it's a shame Newcastle got enough of a gap that they'll probably save. I like a good Newcastle relegation.
I guess, despite John O'Shea's presence there, the way that Sunderland celebrated, did the Poznan and all that last season, probably means I wouldn't mind terribly if they went down, but I quite like Martin O'Neill. I got lots of friends and stuff that support Aston Villa, and, it would be sad for the city I live in not to have any teams in the Premier League, but they are pretty woeful. I think, if I had to really go out on a limb, I would say that QPR, Reading and Southampton are going to go down. It will be the 3 promoted sides from last season that all go down. And that Wigan will survive, Villa will survive, and Sunderland will survive.
Right, fair enough. United won't play much of a part in this. Of that lot, only actually play Sunderland in a couple of weeks' time.
Yeah.
After the international break, and aside from that, a lot of mid-table dross, including Chelsea and Arsenal.
It's perfect for the run-in, isn't it? I mean, that's what you want during the run-in. But to the game at the weekend, I mean, I don't expect it to be a world-beating performance from United, but it really, really shouldn't need to be, and we really would have to be bad not to win.
Yeah, I mean, you do remember the 4-3. How many goals? 7 in 30-something minutes, wasn't it? At the Majeski in December. I mean, talk about comedy of errors, or what was it? Cavalcade. Cartoon cavalcade, Ferguson called the defending. United's tightened up an awful lot since then, except for the cup game at the weekend, I suppose. I wouldn't expect another 4-3. I'd expect a nice, comfortable United victory, and a good way of getting out the last couple of games out of the system. I suppose a defeat and a draw is a crisis time in Old Trafford, isn't it? And I think we'll come out of it with a thumping win.
The real danger of this one is complacency, and you've just exhibited a mass of, you think we're going to come out of it with a thumping win, but it's hard to look at the relative merits of the two sides and the form of both sides and not suspect that United will blow off the cobwebs. And actually, it was quite good to have that game against Chelsea to mess up a bit, and we're still in the cup after all, and I'd sort of prefer we'd messed up in the cup than messed up in the league, that's for sure.
United's games: Reading at home, Sunderland away, then the cup game, and then it's the derby with Manchester City. And so basically, there's 4 games there that could win United a Premier League, get United into the semi-finals of the FA Cup for another derby game. I mean, it's a big few weeks now leading up to the start of April, and I think United are in a great position. Defeat in Europe was hugely disappointing, especially the way it came. It could have a really negative effect. There was definitely a fallout from that against Chelsea, certainly physically, in the way they performed in the second half, but I think after a week off, United will be refreshed, ready to go. 2 victories in a row coming into the cup game. United have had some good performances at Stamford Bridge recently, so I think we're set up quite nicely for that derby on the 8th of April.
It's exciting when you put it like that.
So, of course, Little Ranter, who's coming along, Miss Rant is due on the 10th of April, so we don't want any early babies. Just putting it out there that, births can be missed for derbies.
What you're really going to struggle with is if Wayne Rooney scores the winner in that game, you'd be contractually obligated to call the kid Wayne, and I don't think that's going to work for Mrs. Rant.
Yeah, think not.
Predictions against Reading. I mean, it's very difficult. One thing that's extremely difficult to predict, I think, is the starting lineup. I mean, I do think that really is difficult to call. I'm pretty confident it'll be De Gea, Everett and Raphael, and beyond that, I'm really not sure.
Well, look, United have had a week to rest, and there's 2 weeks until the Sunderland game. I know there's the international break, but still, there's no reason to chop and change. So I think he'll be playing somewhere very close to full strength. As I said, I think it wouldn't harm anyone for Van Persie to have another week off.
Yeah, I think Giggsy will play some part as well. That's the other thing. He did mention that after the Madrid game on last Friday's press conference. He said he won't play any part against Chelsea, but then he will play a part against Reading, and that's how we're managing him at the moment. So I think it'll be Giggsy will play, and I'm going to predict that he's going to score as well I was about to predict a clean sheet then. I think I'm going to, Ed. I'm going to go out on a limb and predict a 3-0 win to Manchester United.
Well, Giggsy always scores, and I had in my head, before you said that, 3-0 to United, so I'm going to have to copy you there.
Okay.
And say 3-0. I think it'll be a nice, comfortable United win. I'm not sure if Giggsy will score.
Okay, all right. Well, you've got, who do you think? So we got to pick one of the goal scorers.
Wayne Rooney.
All right, excellent.
I think Rooney will score, and I think Welbeck will score.
So I think that brings us to the end of another Rantcast. Talking of like 2 games in a row, it looks like we're going to get 2 Rantcasts in a row out, touch wood, as we record this. It's still early days yet. A lot could go wrong between now and the time when you're hearing this. But if you're hearing it, it means nothing has. Of course, no Rantcast next week, although we will be paying attention to how Rio does for England. We can't bring ourselves to do an entire podcast dedicated to previewing the international break, so we'll be back with you in 2 weeks' time. If you want to get in touch with Ed or I in between now and the next time we record one of these, you can get Ed at United Rant or me at UTD Rantcast on Twitter. Get us both at facebook.com/UnitedRant or leave a comment on unitedrant.co.uk. And if you're feeling incredibly generous and want to chip into the running costs of this podcast, then unitedrant.co.uk/donate. Still no eccentric millionaires, leaving us to a life of luxury and podcasting.
That's a real shame. Of course, there are eccentric millionaires at Old Trafford. That's the only thing that I can use to explain the reason why United bought Bébé.
Yes, he probably won't be scoring, but he'll always be a hero.
And a hero to us, always, is Ed Barber, who brought you this. That's Ed Barber on Twitter.
Would you pass if I asked you to pass? Would you run and try to track back? Would you try if you saw me trying? And would you score 1 goal tonight? Would you tackle if I gave you some tips? Would you laugh when you probably miss? In a League Cup tie, you could be involved. A cross is in the stands up high. I can be your hero, baby. I can talk you through the game. That guy behind you is Evra. You just gave the ball away. Would you swear that you'll cross down the line? Or would you lie and then go back inside? Would you play too deep to get in the side? I don't care your soul tonight. I can be your hero, baby. I can talk you through the game. That guy behind you is Evra. You just gave the ball away.
Carrick to Tunnicliffe, who has room. So he has players in red, but Berbatov's one of them. So it's for Mile here. Can he put it back on Carroll? It might go for Bébé!
Oh, I just wanna loan you. I just wanna loan you. Oh yeah. Was the price too steep? Did you July? I don't care, Valencia's out wide. I can be your hero, baby. I can talk you through the game. That guy behind you is Evra.
is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
Forget the pressure to overhaul your life. The new year doesn't need a new you. It needs you. Grow Therapy helps you make meaningful change at your pace and on your time. Grow connects you with thousands of independent licensed therapists across the U.S., offering both virtual and in-person sessions, nights and weekends. There are no subscriptions, no long-term commitments. You just pay per session. Grow accepts over 100 insurance plans, including Medicaid in some states. Sessions average about $21 with insurance, and some pay as little as $0, depending on their plan. Visit growtherapy.com/try now today to get started. That's growtherapy.com/try now. Availability and coverage vary by state and insurance plan.